Hello, everybody, and welcome into a preview and prediction video here at the Voice of College Football Texas channel. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below, and let's jump right into this. So Texas, 12.5 points favorites versus Arizona State. The over-under here is 51 points. This actually has moved down. It opened at 13, moved up to 13.5, then has come back down to 12.5. Gerald, let's talk about some of the matchups in this game. What is a matchup either side of the ball that you're looking forward to that could decide the outcome of this game?
Yeah, I think the big matchup for me that I'm really watching is Arizona State's offensive line against Texas's defensive front. Like that's the one matchup I've got my eyes on because Arizona State likes to run the ball. That's what they do. They run their offense through Cam Scatterbo. It's what they're going to do. And this is no offense to anybody that they've already played. They have not played a front like Texas's defensive front yet this year. It is what it is. The Big 12 doesn't have one. Arizona doesn't have one, right? None of the teams that they played really bring the front. And that's saying like Texas is probably one of the best defenses in the country, right? Them, Notre Dame, maybe Georgia. It just depends, right? But like for me, that's the big matchup. It's like, can Arizona State's offensive line keep Texas out of their backfield? Can they keep Cam Scatterbo on schedule? Can they stay on schedule? Because and again, this is not meant to be a shot at anybody, but that offense, that team is not built to have to air it out. Sam Leavitt is not that quarterback yet. He's a good passer, but when you're able to kind of pin your ears back and get after him or play the pass, play an extra man back there, it's not going to work out well for them. So can the Arizona State offensive line match up well with the Texas defensive line and go with the offense that they feel comfortable running?
Yeah, so to hit on that, I looked at Arizona State's offensive line and Pro Football Focus grades. Fatanu, who's a really good center, I believe he was the Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year as well, so he's a really good player. Yeah. Has a 69.8 grade, so he's a good player. He's not a great player. Their weaknesses, honestly, looking at them, seem to be the guards. 143rd ranking according to Pro Football Focus, and then 426. That is really bad. The one guy, if you go by the 143rd ranking, that's about an average guard. 426 is a bad guard. That's not good. So I think Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton could have the advantage in there, which would be really nice. Alfred Collins, according to Pro Football Focus, is the number one ranked defensive tackle. So to me, I think you should look at him in this game and see if he has the advantage there and the leverage there to win his matchup. And that is the important matchup to win because as we talked about last week, there is going to be no Jordan Tyson in this game. He is a 1,000-yard receiver. He's the only 1,000-yard receiver on this Arizona State football team. And again, when we go back to Pro Football Focus, he's the 56th best receiver in the country, which is pretty good. The next highest ranked guy, Xavier Gilroy, who only has 320 yards on the year, is 786 in the country, according to Pro Football Focus. That is quite a downgrade now that he is your number one. And guess what? Your leading receiver now is Cam Scatterbo. So I think even more of that is going to be put on his plate, catching it out of the backfield. So how does he handle that? And the games they have lost this year, if you look at Cincinnati and Texas Tech, he averaged under 3.5 yards per carry. So I think Texas is going to have to, keep him around that number. And the comparison I like to draw, because I said last week, I think this reminds me of the Big 12 championship game. Ollie Gordon had 1,732 yards on 6.1 yards per carry. Cam Scatterbo, 1,568 yards on 6 yards per carry. They both had 22 touchdowns coming into this game. They're very, very similar numbers. Yeah. And Texas completely shut down Ollie Gordon, and they dominated that game in part because of that. So I think I would agree with you. I think that is a matchup to look out in this game. I think another one is, like I said, Jordan Tyson's out. How do they cover these wide receivers from Arizona State? Because someone from Arizona State's going to have to step up, whether that's Xavier Gilroy or Chamon Mateer or Melquan Stovall, the wide receiver. So one of those guys is going to have to step up. I don't know which one it's going to be. I don't know how Kennedy Dillingham's going to approach this game and decide where he likes a matchup, because we saw what Clemson did. Clemson liked the matchup they had with Malik Muhammad and kept exposing it. But I would argue without Jordan Tyson in this game, I think Clemson has 3 to 4 better weapons catching the ball than Arizona State. So it's going to be really hard for me to see how they get an advantage, but it's going to be interesting because, again, I love this coaching staff from Arizona State. So how do they scheme it up? Is it reverses? Is it stuff like that? Instead of hitting the downfield passes, is it reverses, screens, stuff like that? crazy play designs. Could we see a wide receiver throwing a pass in this game? It would not surprise me. I think they're going to have to manufacture some type of offense because I don't see their wide receivers matching up very well with our cornerbacks and DBs.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about like getting, and again, I go back to what we just talked about, like getting Cam Scatabo into space. I think it's going to be a lot of their passing game. I think you're going to use some of that to supplement the run as well. And I will say, like, I said Sam Levitt isn't the quarterback to like pass you into this game, but the guy doesn't put the ball in bad spots. He's got a 24-5, I think, touchdown interception ratio, which is really good. He's not going to put the ball in peril. He's not going to make bad decisions, which is something that Texas has feasted on in the passing game. They're one of the top intercepting defenses in the country, and so going up against the quarterback. Now, we said that 2 weeks ago against Clemson and Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik threw his 4th interception of the year against Texas. So maybe that's just the Texas defense. But Sam Levitt's not the guy who's going to put the ball in peril. He's going to make smart decisions. That's one of the rare things you see from freshman quarterbacks, especially ones that like to, the true dual threat kind of guys. And so, yeah, I think the way that they manufacture, it's going to be, and Kenny Dillingham is going to put them in good positions, right? Kenny Dillingham is going to have a lot of things going on. They've had almost a month to prep for this game. I think they probably were pretty, they probably weren't 100% sure, but they probably had a package in there for Texas as they're practicing against. So I would not be shocked. And they knew that their wide receiver 1 was going to be out for this game. So I think they've had a month to prepare. They've had a month to get somebody ready. And so I think they're going to come out and be prepared for that, not eventuality, that reality of the situation. So I absolutely wonder how that's going to work out. I think one other thing I'm really looking at on the other side of the ball, really, like, can the Texas offense stay on schedule, right? Can the Texas offense get the running game going? Arizona State has not been a very stout rushing defense this year, but they've had some games where they held opponents to double digits. Their first couple of games, they held Mississippi State 24 yards, right? Like, they've had some games where they held Oklahoma State 81 yards, Brigham Young 94 yards, Arizona 84 yards. I'm looking at the numbers here. Like, they've had some games where they shut down solid rushing attacks, right? Brigham Young is a good rushing team, and they did not do anything against this defense. And so if Texas cannot get the run game going, that's a major red flag for me in this game. Arizona State has done some interesting things with their defense. And let's just say it, like, their defense has a lot of guys that would love to prove something against Texas. Like, let's just say it, put it out there, right? So, like, can the Texas running game get going, stay going, and really keep pace? Because when Texas is able to do that, the offense stays and clicks.
Yeah, 100%. Again, the 2 games where the running game doesn't get going is Georgia, and you see a whole mess of problems come from that. You see the average, I believe, between the 2 games, the average third down distance was like 3rd and 11. That's a terrible situation to put yourself in as an offense. And I think combined 13 sacks, over 20 tackles for loss, just a lot of havoc created because of the lack of run game. And yeah, you nailed it. Arizona State's pretty good against the run. They allow 3.8 yards per rush. That's 32nd in the country. Versus the pass, they're pretty good too. 6.3 yards per pass. That's 19th in the country. But then we get to again, these weird stats I just don't understand, because you're good against the rush, or you're good. Yeah, you're good versus the rush, and you're good versus the pass on a yards per play basis, down to down. But then you're bad in red zone scoring. They're 76 in red zone scoring defense. They're 92nd in third down percentage allowed. So I don't really understand how those correlate. Doesn't really make much sense to me, but I agree. I think Texas has to run the ball very well in this game, and we'll see if they can do that. If they can do that, they'll win the game. Now, I will say this. I don't think we're going to do on the ground what we did versus Clemson. This is actually a better rush defense than Clemson. Clemson was a horrendous rushing defense.
I will say, though, when you look at the splits for Arizona State against Power 5 teams, they're giving up almost 45 more yards per game, and all of their rushing touchdowns have come against Power 5 teams. They've feasted on the non-Power 5 teams on their schedule, right? They only had 2 of those games, but still, like, the matchup, there's something to look at there.
Yeah, 100%. That definitely plays into it. And they don't get after the quarterback very well. They're 123rd in sack percentage at 134 teams. So bottom 15 in the country. So I think Texas, honestly, that's why I keep going back to the Big 12 championship game. We saw that with Oklahoma State. They could not get to Quinn Ewers. The athletes out in space were way too much. They could not tackle Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders, Adonai Mitchell. The only guy that's like an outlier to me athletically is Xavier Worthy. We don't have an Xavier Worthy on this team, but I think Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Ryan Wingo are all as good as A.D. Mitchell after the catch and Jatavian Sanders after the catch. They're not as good as Xavier Worthy, so it's going to be interesting. But and I think Jaden Blue is better than I love Jonathan Brooks, and he didn't even play that game, but he's better than C.J. Baxter after the catch as well. So I think we're going to be able to exploit them out in space, and I think that's something to be aware of. And we'll see how they tackle. That's going to be very big key to the game, because you know what Sark loves to do. He loves to screen you to death, and if you can't tackle the screens and read them well, he's just going to keep going back to them, and he's going to roll off chunk plays and eventually hit you with a play action pass deep. That's what he likes to do. He likes to suck you up and then hit you deep.
Yeah, and that has to be the game plan, I think, for them. I would wonder if Texas tries to take advantage of some of the space and some it. And again, this is not. I'm not trying to like look down on Arizona State, because they were finished last in the Big 12, and they are 11-2 or 10. They only lost 2 games, and they're sitting in the college football playoff with a bye, right? But like on a athlete to athlete, talent to talent basis, like Texas has an advantage. You look at the blue chip ratio, right? You look at the roster composites, right? So I would be shocked if Sark doesn't try to scheme up some things to get them in space, to get players in space, to get Jaden Blue to try to catch an edge and just be the fastest guy on the field, right? I would not be surprised to see those types of things. And Sark is going to bring the eye candy anyways in any scheme that he has to get their linebackers looking in the wrong spot. So this is going to be, again, Sark has had a couple of weeks, 10 days to scheme this up. So I'm curious to see what it looks like.
100%. Now let's get to the keys to the game. Gerald, I'll let you start off whatever side you want to start with, Arizona State or Texas. So let me know a couple keys to the game.
I mean, I think I said it already. I think the 2 big keys for Texas really is to shut down Cam Scatterbo, to shut down the run game. I think that's probably the big one. And then to limit turnovers. I think Arizona State has feasted on turnovers this year. They have 14 interceptions. They're like at a plus 14 turnover ratio. And so like, if Texas gives them a short field, go back and look at the box score from the Iowa State Big 12 championship game. Arizona State opened that game up, went from a 24-10 lead to a 45-10 lead, because on the first 3 drives of the second half, they forced Iowa State into a fumble, an interception, and then another fumble, and then went like 40 yards, 20 yards, and 40 yards to score. That sounds a lot like Texas versus Georgia round 1, right? So that to me is a massive key to this game. If you give them the ball on short fields, they're going to manufacture something to take a shot play and try to score. Now, Texas's defense hasn't been really good at the quick changes. Unfortunately, we've had plenty of opportunities to see that this year. But limit the turnovers. Arizona State is going to be an opportunistic defense. Xavier Alford, Texas fans know that name really well. That guy loves to be back there, would love to make a play against Texas, right? So that, to me, those are the 2 keys. Can you shut down Cam Scatterbo, force them to do something that's not really their deal, and then keep the ball. Don't give them extra possessions.
Yeah, and like you said, they're 6th in the country in turnover margin per game. They're plus 1.1 per game, which is really, astounding. They're better than us, which we're 34th in the country at, and we're good at it. So they're even better than we are at that. So definitely hold on to the ball. I do expect, listen, at this point, Quinn Ewers is going to throw an interception. Is it always going to be, is it always going to be his fault? No, but he's going to throw one. Something's going to happen. It'll go off someone's hands. We just can't allow that to lead. Like I said, as I've been saying, you can't allow that to lead directly to points, and you can't turn it over on your side of the field. If it's like a deep shot down the field, they catch it at their own 27, 28-yard line, fine. Our defense will probably be able to stop them to where they don't score points, but you can't allow those to turn into points. Another thing in this game, just like I said, I think weird things would have to happen for Arizona State to win. So no block punts like in the Texas A&M game, no block kicks returned for points. I think that's a big thing as well. Whenever stuff like that happens, momentum can shift and turn, and Arizona State's going to need plays like that in this game to win the football game, because if they don't get those type of plays, they're not going to win this football game. And then another thing, Arizona State, they're a pretty good offense, but they're one of the worst red zone scoring teams in the country. They are worse than Texas, which is hard to do because Texas is in the hundreds, but they are I know they're 114th in red zone scoring. So we're 106th, I think, now. So the Clemson game definitely bumped us up a little bit. I think we're about in the same realm as them before the Clemson game. And listen, if you're going to allow them to move the ball, fine. If that's the way you want to play this game, because I think Arizona State will move the ball. They have a good scheme. They have a good quarterback, and they have good running back, so they'll be able to put some drives together. But you have to be able to stop them in the red zone. Again, killing momentum. If they get 50 yards, but then they don't score, it really doesn't matter. That's not what wins football games. So kill the momentum when you get to the red zone. And then on the opposite side of the ball, can you continue the red zone success? That is something Texas has struggled with, but they're really good in the Clemson game. Can you continue to do that? Because again, guys, I'm not looking. Listen, I think we're going to win this game, and we'll get into the predictions in a second. But I'm also looking a little bit forward to next week. If you play Ohio State and Oregon, you're going to have to execute in the red zone. So to me, get those habits down now. If you get it, if you have it, Clemson and Arizona State back to back doing it well, that's a good thing. That gives you confidence when you get to the red zone from now on. And I think that's something this team needs, especially in the red zone, because they've heard it. They know the numbers, especially Steve Sarkisian. It was like the first question he was asked a week ago during his morning press conference of like, what did you do for the red zone? And he explained that he dove deep into that, and it was on him. It was on Quinn. It was basically on the whole team, and especially his play calling. He looked at that. So definitely got to keep the ball rolling in that department.
I mean, we saw Texas make a market improvement. And one of the things I've been critical of Sark over his tenure at Texas, he overthinks. He is too smart for his own good in some spots. So, like, why are you doing why there are just some weird decisions, let's say it like that happened in those moments. So I love it. They have to keep that going. They really, like, if turning touchdowns into field goals is going to lose you this game. We'll lose you any football game, but especially an offense, because you're not going to completely shut down Cam Scatterbo. It is what it is, right? You can limit him, but you're not going to shut him down completely. So are you going to give up 14 points, 21 points to that running back? And can you score touchdowns when you have the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that is one thing I like about Sark. He does take responsibility for it. I just wish he would get out of his own head sometimes and just do what's working. Like we saw in the Clemson game, we could have run the ball, I think, every down, and it would have been successful. I think he should have run a little bit more. But in the second half, he got back to it when he needed to. But overall, I don't really have any issues with him. It's hard to take any issues with him when he's led us to back-to-back college football playoffs, and if we win this game, back-to-back Final Fours. So let's get into the predictions here. Jared, I'll let you start off first. What do you think the score is going to be? And remember, guys, the spread is 12.5 points. The over-under here is 51.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine any team like the worst defensive performances Texas put up this year were 24 points, right? That the 30 points to Georgia is an outlier because those are short fields. Like Vanderbilt, 24 points, Clemson, 24 points. I don't know if Arizona State is going to put up that. So I really have them in the 21 point-ish range, which I would think puts Texas, in my mind, probably somewhere in like a 28 to 31 point range. So I really like if I just kind of gave you my prediction. I think probably 31 to 21 Texas is where I'm going. I think they'll probably give up. I mean, Arizona State's going to score the ball. It is what it is. Like Cam Scatterbo is too good to completely put a lid on. He's going to make they're going to get him in the open field. He's going to make somebody miss. He's going to run somebody over because that's what he does. He is this weird like mix of Mike Allstott and Warrick Dunn together. If you go back to like the early Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? I say early, like when I was a kid, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like that's what he's going to do. So like it's impossible to expect you to put a bottle on him completely. So yeah, 31-21 Texas. I think Arizona State probably, I think Texas doesn't cover, but I think Texas can win comfortably.
Okay, so that would put you right over to 52 points. So you're cutting it close there. I'm going to go, like I said, this just reminds me of the Oklahoma State game so much. You have one weapon in the backfield with a decent quarterback. Now, Sam Levitt's way better than Alan Bowman. I will say that. I think Oklahoma State's offensive line last year was slightly better than this Arizona State's offensive line. And I think Arizona State's defense is better overall than Oklahoma State's defense. But this is going to be in a dome. It's a big spot. Sark has a bunch of time. Last year's game was 49-21. I don't think we score that many points because, like I said, I think Arizona State's defense is definitely better than Oklahoma State's defense. But I'm going to go Texas 38, and I'm going to go Arizona State 21. I just think we win this game, and we win it with our athleticism and speed. I think we're just way faster, way more athletic. In the meaningful positions, too, we're just better. Like, that's the thing, guys. If this was an even battle in the trenches and then we were better on the outside, then this game would be closer. But there's really no position I see where they're going up against each other where I'm like, you know what? I give Arizona State the slight edge here. I don't give Arizona State's defensive line an edge over Texas offensive line at all. I don't give I give Texas defensive line a big edge over Arizona State's offensive line. The only question I have is if Malik Muhammad, if that's truly who he is and he just wasn't tested all year, then I could see that being an issue because I think they'll just have Xavier Gilroy on his side and just constantly test him. But other than that, I can't really – they don't have a dynamic tight end. It's going to have to be a lot of Cam Scatabo. And when's the last time a running back just beat up Texas? It's been so long. It hasn't happened in the last 2 years. There's only been one guy that's rushed for over 100 yards, and that was Dylan Gabriel. And that's the funny thing. I actually think if someone's going to beat us rushing the ball, it's going to have to be Sam Levitt. I think he's going to have to take off and make some plays with his legs. I think he's going to have to rush for 70 to 80 yards to keep this game close. And honestly, versus this Texas defense, the way they hit and the way they fly around, I think if he does that too often, he may get knocked out of this football game. So, especially with some of the comments he made earlier this week, which he probably shouldn't have said that. But so I'm going to take Texas to win this game pretty easily, and I'm going to take them to cover, and I take the over here as well.
Yeah, that is an understated I just don't know what that serves, right? Like, unless your guys need a little bit of extra zhuzh, which if you do, then that's a whole nother conversation, right? Who needs extra motivation in the college football playoff, right? But like, I just don't understand the need to like jaw like that, especially like offensive players against like, and this is just like a universal, like anybody you ask, like Texas is one of the best defenses in the country, right? Top 3, probably, if you want to really mince words. Like, why are you as an offensive player going to give them any more motivation? Did you not see what Andrew Makuba did to those Georgia quarterbacks? Did you not see that? Texas just had the Sean Alexander freshman of the year who's going to be rushing you. Like, what are you doing? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
And if Sam Levitt does, like, I'm not rooting for this. I hope he doesn't get knocked out of the game. First off, I want to play him because he tests our secondary, and I would never root for injury. But he is the second best quarterback we face. I'm pretty confident after watching a little bit of him and looking at the numbers. I mean, according to Pro Football Focus, he's the 15th best quarterback in the country. So he's a really good player. Yeah. But if we knocked him out, like Jeff Sims can't throw the football. So it'd be like Pete Kukowski at that point would probably just what I would do is blitz every play because he cannot throw the football. He was terrible at Nebraska. So it's going to be interesting. I have it 38-21. Gerald has it 31-21. So we're both going to take the over. We just differ on, we both think Texas wins. Gerald's going to take Arizona State to cover. I'm going to take Texas to cover. I think I'm about 500 when I take Texas to cover this year, so not very good. So we'll see what happens. But that does it for us, guys. Can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. We will be here after the game Wednesday breaking it down for you. We're going to talk about Arizona State, and then we're going to be talking about who our potential matchup could be. Obviously, the Rose Bowl kicks off right. It'll probably kick off right after we're jumping offline of the recap. And then we'll have the show Monday to talk about that matchup if we win the football game. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And we appreciate you guys watching and being here.
Okay.